Jeffrey slowly rolled his power chair down the hallway, the soft hum of the motor the only sound in the house. His hands tightened on the controls as he stopped outside Tom and Daya's room. He hesitated for a second, then knocked lightly with his knuckles against the door frame. Tom opened it right away. Jeffrey looked up at him, eyes tired but serious. "Mom, Dad, can we talk?" he said. Like everyone together, Uncle Peter, Uncle Ben, Grandma Pat, Ron Armtod, Sue Armtod, all of them. Tom blinked, surprised by the list. Daya came up behind him, listening now. Jeffrey swallowed hard, then rushed on before he could lose the courage. I need to know if what I remember is real. I think maybe parts of this timeline aren't right. I know I sound crazy, but please just trust me." Silence filled the room for a moment. Tom stepped forward slowly and crouched a little so he was eye level with Jeffrey. "You're not crazy," Tom said carefully, "but this sounds like something that's really weighing on you." Jeffrey's grip tightened on the chair handles. "I keep seeing things differently," he said. "Like I'm remembering two versions of everything, and I don't know which one is real anymore." Daya looked at Tom, then back at Jeffrey. Her voice softened. "Okay," she said, "we hear you, we're not going to ignore this." Tom nodded. "We can call everyone, we'll set it up, no judgment, just talk." Jeffrey exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "Really?" he asked. "Really?" Tom replied. Jeffrey finally let his shoulders drop a little, still in the chair, still unsure, but no longer alone in it. Tom stood up and gently rested a hand on the back of Jeffrey's chair. "Let's take this one step at a time," he said. That Saturday, everyone arrived one by one. Uncle Peter first, then Uncle Ben. Grandma Pat came in quietly, setting her bag down near the door. Ron Armtod and Sue Armtod followed, exchanging uncertain glances as they stepped into the living room. The house felt unusually still, like everyone knew this wasn't a normal visit. Tom stood at the front of the room and raised a hand slightly to get everyone's attention. "Hey everyone," he said. "Jeffrey may talk about things that are sensitive, some of it might feel confusing or unexpected." He glanced toward Jeffrey's room door. "Jeffrey needs to feel heard, so please be patient, be respectful, just listen first, okay? He's already confused and this is important to him." A few quiet nods came from the group. Daya stood near Tom, arms folded but calm. "We're not here to argue," she added softly. "We're here to understand what he's going through." In the hallway, the sound of the power chair began to approach. Jeffrey rolled forward slowly, stopping just at the edge of the room. He looked around at all of them, faces he trusted, faces he wasn't sure he trusted anymore. For a moment he didn't speak. Then he took a breath. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "I know this probably sounds strange, but I need to try to explain what's been happening in my head, because I can't tell anymore what's real and what is." The room stayed silent, waiting. And Jeffrey, still gripping the controls of his chair, finally began. The room went quiet after Jeffrey spoke. He sat in his power chair just inside the circle of people, eyes moving from face to face as if trying to match each reaction with something he already feared. "I was in a coma for a year," he said again, slower this time, "and in that time I was somewhere else, another timeline. That's what it felt like to me." No one interrupted. Jeffrey's voice tightened as he turned toward Ron and Sue Armtod. "So my first question," he continued, "Mr. and Mrs. Armtod, you said you can't have kids, right? So you were thinking about adoption." Ron shifted a little in his seat. "Yes," he said carefully, "we were considering it." Jeffrey nodded quickly, like he needed to lock the answer in place. "Don't go with cross heaven," he said. "They won't give a note of the bio family. Mrs. Armtod won't like that." That sentence hit the room in a strange way, less like confusion, more like something specific and deeply personal to him. Sue frowned, her voice rising with emotion. "Wait, you're saying we should just give up a child and not even know the biological family? That's cold." The tension shifted immediately. Tom stepped forward slightly, holding his hands up, not to stop anyone but to slow everything down. "Okay," Tom said calmly. "Let's pause for a second. Jeffrey, I hear that this feels very real to you, but I want to make sure everyone understands what you're saying and that we don't jump to conclusions." Daya looked at Jeffrey gently. Can you tell us why you're thinking about this specific situation? Jeffrey's hands tightened on the chair controls again. Because it already happened, he said quietly. Or it will, I don't know which one, but I remember it. I remember you all talking about it like this mattered. The room didn't break into argument, but it didn't settle either. Instead, everyone just sat with it, waiting for what Jeffrey would say next. Ron leaned forward a little, his brow furrowed now, the confusion turning sharper. How do you know that? He asked. His voice wasn't angry yet, just unsettled. We never told anyone we were trying. The room felt tighter after that sentence. Jeffrey didn't hesitate. He looked straight at Ron like the answer was obvious in a way no one else could see. You told Peter, Jeffrey said, and me in the other timeline. That phrase landed heavier than the others. Uncle Peter shifted in his seat immediately. Jeffrey, he said carefully, I've never had that conversation with them, not about that. Sue nodded quickly. We didn't tell anyone, that's what I mean, we kept it private. Tom stepped in again, his tone steady but firm now. Jeffrey, I want you to slow down with me for a second. He crouched slightly so his voice was calmer, closer. Right now, everyone in this room is saying that conversation didn't happen, but you're saying you remember it clearly from somewhere else. Jeffrey's eyes flicked between them. Yes, he said, because it did happen, just not here, not this version. A long silence followed. Dea finally spoke softly. Jeffrey, when you say other timeline, do you feel like these memories are happening at the same time or like they're overlapping? Jeffrey looked down at his hands on the chair controls. Overlapping, he said quietly, like I woke up in the wrong one and everyone else doesn't know they changed. No one rushed to respond. Instead, the room stayed still, caught between trying to understand him and not knowing how to. The room went still in a way that felt heavier than before. Jeffrey's voice had pushed into something deeply personal now, and it made several people exchange uneasy looks, like they were trying to follow a map that didn't match any place they knew. Jeffrey looked at Tom and Dea directly, his expression strained. Mom, Dad, please sit, he said again, more urgently this time. Mom, Dad told me you passed away after giving birth to me. Dad was heartbroken, he put me up for adoption. Dad, you were my caregiver at the group home too, but later you told me after Grandma and Dad got arrested, Mr. Armtod found embezzlement in the group home. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them in too long. Before anyone could respond, Grandma Pat's voice cut in, shaking but firm. Jeffrey, please be quiet for Grandma. The sentence wasn't angry, more like overwhelmed, like she was trying to stop something from spiraling further in a room that already felt unstable. A silence followed immediately. Tom stood up slowly, raising a hand slightly, not to silence Jeffrey but to steady the moment. Okay, he said carefully, everyone just breathe for a second, no one jump in yet. Dea moved closer to Jeffrey's chair, her tone gentle. Jeffrey, she said, I need you to look at me for a moment. These are very detailed memories you're describing, and I can see how real they feel to you. Jeffrey's grip tightened on the chair controls. But I remember it, he insisted, quieter now. All of it you don't remember because you're not from that one. Ron looked down, then back up, clearly struggling with how to respond without escalating things. Jeffrey, he said carefully, what you're describing, none of that happened in our life, not the group home, not arrests, none of it. Uncle Peter nodded, we've never been involved in anything like that. Sue's voice softened again, but now there was worry in it. We're not saying you're lying, but something is really mixing things up for you. The room didn't turn into an argument. Instead, it turned into something quieter and heavier, where everyone was trying to understand Jeffrey without confirming the world he was describing. Tom finally spoke again, calm but direct. Jeffrey, he said, I think what's happening here is that your memories feel completely real to you, but the people in this room are experiencing a different reality of events. He paused. And our job right now isn't to decide who's right, it's to make sure you're safe and that you're not carrying this alone. Jeffrey stared down at his hands. For the first time, he didn't respond immediately. The tension in the room snapped into something chaotic all at once. Ron turned sharply toward Grandma Pat. Pat, he said, voice rising, why did $500,000 go missing 3 months ago? That question landed like a shockwave. Grandma Pat's face tightened immediately. "Jeffrey, why are you bringing this up?" she said, her voice shaking but defensive. Uncle Peter stepped in quickly, looking between them. "Jeffrey is saying the truth," he said, trying to steady things. Pat's expression shifted, hurt and anger mixing together. "Yes, how can you do this to your own grandmother?" she snapped, her voice cracking. "He needs a nap, this is too much, he's confused." Tom immediately turned toward her. "Mom, why are you acting like this?" he asked, clearly trying to keep control of the situation. Uncle Ben raised a hand slightly. "She told me that she did," he added quietly, almost reluctantly. That made the room go silent again, but in a worse way than before. Jeffrey's shoulders dropped, his hands loosened on the chair controls. I shouldn't have said anything," he muttered, eyes down. "I shouldn't have said anything." Dea moved closer to him right away. "Jeffrey, look at me," she said gently. "You didn't do anything wrong by speaking." Tom stepped back into a calmer tone, trying to reset the room. "Okay," he said firmly, "we are not going to keep escalating this. Everyone is emotional right now and this is getting out of control." Ron exhaled sharply, still staring at Pat. "We need clarity here," he said, "because that's a serious accusation and we're not just brushing past it." Pat looked overwhelmed now, shaking her head. "This is not how I expected today to go." Jeffrey sat quietly in his chair, suddenly withdrawn, like the weight of everything he said had come crashing back onto him. The room didn't resolve. It just held there, full of unanswered questions, crossed emotions, and a fragile sense that things could either calm down or break further. Jeffrey's voice came out low and exhausted. "I'm going to my room, I'm sorry everyone, I shouldn't have said anything." Without waiting for a response, he turned his chair away from the group and began heading down the hallway. The room stayed frozen for a split second, everyone still processing what had just happened. Then Peter moved. "Jeffrey, wait," he said, already stepping away from the others. He followed quickly down the hall, his footsteps faster as Jeffrey's chair rolled toward his room. Jeffrey reached the doorway and stopped just inside, not fully turning around. His shoulders were tense, like he was bracing for more questions or regret. Peter slowed as he reached him, not rushing in, keeping his voice calm. "Hey," Peter said gently, "don't shut yourself away right now." Jeffrey didn't look at him. "I messed everything up," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have said any of it." Peter shook his head. "You didn't mess anything up by speaking, you were trying to explain something that's been really heavy for you." A pause. From the hallway, the distant murmur of the others could still be heard, but the space between them felt quieter. Peter stepped a little closer but stayed outside the doorway, giving him space. "Listen to me," Peter said. "Whatever you're feeling right now, you don't have to carry it alone in that room, okay?" Jeffrey's hands stayed on the chair controls, but he didn't move forward or shut the door. He was still there, caught between wanting to disappear and not wanting to be alone. Peter stood just inside the doorway, keeping his voice low and steady. "I was your brother," he said gently. Jeffrey's hands tightened on the armrests. "Yeah," Jeffrey replied, but his voice cracked a little. "But after Sue passed, you and Ron grew up on me like that. I thought this would help me, but I just made everybody else mad." Peter's expression changed immediately, confused but not dismissive. "Jeffrey," he said carefully, "Sue didn't pass away, and Dea is not gone either. They're still here in the house talking with everyone." He paused, making sure the words weren't overwhelming. "What is happening is that everyone is really upset and trying to understand you, but they're not saying you're wrong as a person, they're saying they don't recognize the events you're describing." Jeffrey stared at the floor. "I messed it up," he whispered again. "I thought saying it would fix it." Peter stepped a little closer but still gave him space. "You didn't make things worse by speaking," Peter said. "You just said something that feels very real to you, that matters, but we also need to slow it down because everyone's getting lost in it, including you." From the hallway, faint voices of Tom and Dea could be heard, still trying to calm the situation outside. Peter softened his tone. "Listen to me," he said. "You're not in trouble, but right now the best thing you can do is stay here with me for a minute. Just breathe, no more trying to solve everything at once." Jeffrey didn't respond right away. But he didn't shut the door either. Tom stepped into the doorway, looking worn out but calmer than before. "After that, Mom and I believe you now," he said quietly. "Everything you said is true." The room seemed to shift with those words. Jeffrey looked up fast, trying to process it. "Mom and Sue?" he asked, uncertain, like he needed clarification more than anything. Tom hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. "They're shocked," he said, "but they're not mad at you." Jeffrey's shoulders dropped slightly, but his face still looked tense, like he didn't fully trust the relief yet. Peter glanced between them, careful. Tom continued, slower now, "We don't have all the answers yet, but we're not going to dismiss you. We're going to figure this out together." Jeffrey's voice came out small. "So I didn't ruin everything." Tom shook his head immediately. "No, you didn't ruin anything. You told us what you've been carrying." A pause settled in the room. From the hallway, the rest of the house still felt unsettled, but in here, the tone had shifted from confrontation to uncertainty mixed with concern. Peter finally spoke softly. "Okay, then the next step is not arguing about it. It's understanding why you've been holding two versions of everything." Tom nodded. "Exactly." Jeffrey stayed in his chair, quieter now, breathing slower, but still clearly overwhelmed, like the weight hadn't gone away, it had just changed shape. Jeffrey sat back in his power chair, staring at the floor like he was trying to line up thoughts that wouldn't stay still. "The coma, dream, whatever it was," he said slowly, voice strained, "it felt 100% real, and 92% of it is real." He looked up, frustration mixing with confusion. "How does that make sense?" The room stayed quiet, nobody jumped in right away. Tom stepped forward a little, choosing his words carefully. "It makes sense that it feels real," he said. "Our brains can hold memories, dreams, stress, and time in ways that feel completely solid to us, especially after something intense." Jeffrey shook his head slightly. "But 92%, he repeated, "that's not just a feeling, that's specific. I didn't make that number up." Peter leaned against the doorframe, watching him closely but gently. "What I'm hearing," Peter said, "is that you're trying to separate what happened in your experience from what everyone else experienced here." Jeffrey nodded quickly. "Yes, exactly, because both can't be wrong." Dea spoke softly from the hallway edge. "Or, it might be that your mind connected real things with things that didn't actually happen and it built a version that feels complete." Jeffrey's jaw tightened. "But it feels complete," he said, "not broken, not random like a real timeline." Tom nodded slowly, not rejecting him. "I believe that it feels complete to you," he said. "We're not arguing about how real it feels, we're just trying to understand what happened to you that made it feel that way." Jeffrey went quiet again. For the first time since everything started, the energy in the room wasn't about proving or disproving anything. It was just uncertainty, shared, heavy, and still not fully understood. Jeffrey's breathing got uneven as he spoke, the words coming faster and more tangled. "I'm crazy then, my grandma may be going to jail because of me," he said, voice shaking. "My brother and sister may be scared of me now, and I told everyone that Sue and Ron can't have a baby on their own in front of everyone." He swallowed hard, eyes darting around the room. "I feel crazy right now." The room went quiet immediately, not tense, not angry, just still. Tom stepped forward first, keeping his voice steady and calm. "Jeffrey, listen to me," he said. "You're not crazy, you're overwhelmed, there's a difference." Jeffrey didn't respond right away, just stared down at his hands. Dea slowly came closer, staying at his side rather than in front of him. "You're in a really intense emotional moment," she said gently. "You said a lot of things because it felt urgent and real to you. That doesn't make you a bad person." Peter nodded from the doorway. "And no one is sitting here scared of you. They're confused and concerned, but they still care about you." Jeffrey's voice dropped, "But I said too much." Tom shook his head. "You shared things you believed were important. That's not the same as hurting people." A pause. Tom continued more carefully. "Right now, the priority isn't sorting out every detail you said, it's helping you feel grounded again." Jeffrey's shoulders stayed tense, but his voice softened slightly. "I don't know what's real anymore," he admitted. Dea replied quietly, "Then we stay with what we do know right now. You're here, you're safe in this moment, and you're not alone in it." The room stayed calm, holding steady around him, no one pushing, no one correcting, just waiting for him to settle back into the present. Ron stepped a little closer, his voice softer than before. "Son, you're not crazy," he said. "No one's mad at you, they're just confused because no one else knows what's been kept hidden but you feel like you do." Jeffrey looked up at him, eyes still unsure. "You really think that?" he asked. Ron nodded, but he didn't rush the answer. "I think you're trying to make sense of something that feels very real to you," he said, "and you said it out loud because you didn't want to carry it alone anymore." He paused, choosing his next words more carefully. "But that doesn't automatically mean everything happened the way it feels," Ron added gently. "It just means something important is going on inside your head and we need to understand it with you." That landed a little differently, more grounding than agreeing. Peter crossed his arms lightly, nodding. "Yeah, two things can be true at once. You can feel completely sure about what you experienced and we can still need to sort out what actually happened here." Jeffrey's grip on the chair loosened just a little. "So you're not mad?" he asked again. Ron gave a small shake of his head. "No, not mad, just trying to understand you." From behind them, Tom added, steady and calm, "And we're still on your side while we figure it out." The room didn't feel fixed, but it no longer felt like it was breaking either. Jeffrey's voice dropped again, smaller now. "But I don't understand it myself, I feel like I lost my mind." That shifted the room more than anything else he'd said. Tom stepped in closer, not rushing him, just steady. "Hey," he said quietly, "feeling like that doesn't mean you actually lost your mind. It means you're overwhelmed and your brain is trying to sort out something really intense." Dea knelt slightly beside his chair so she was at his level. "When something like a coma, trauma, or even really vivid dreams happens," she said, "your brain can blend things together so well that it feels completely real even after you wake up." Jeffrey shook his head faintly, "But it doesn't feel mixed, it feels clear." Peter nodded. "That's the tricky part. Sometimes the clearest feeling memories are the ones our brain built to make sense of everything." Ron added gently, "Not understanding it doesn't make you broken. It just means you need help sorting it out." Jeffrey looked between them, still scared but listening. Tom placed a hand lightly on the back of the chair. "You don't have to figure this out alone," he said, "and you don't have to solve it tonight." A small pause. Dea spoke again, softer. "Right now, the goal isn't proving what's real or not, it's helping you feel stable again." Jeffrey's breathing started to slow just a little. The confusion was still there, but it wasn't swallowing him the same way anymore because now the room was holding some of that weight with him. Jeffrey rubbed his face, still shaken. "Sorry, but I need some air." No one argued. Tom nodded right away. "Okay, that's a good idea." Dea stood slowly. "Do you want someone to go with you or do you want a minute alone?" Jeffrey hesitated, then said quietly, "Just nearby, not too close." Peter gave a small nod. "I'll hang back just in case." Tom moved ahead and opened the front door, letting in a bit of fresh air. "That's fine," he said. "Take your time, no one's going anywhere." Jeffrey rolled his chair outside, the cooler air hitting his face. He paused on the porch, breathing it in slower this time, like he was trying to reset everything inside his head. Behind him, the house stayed quiet. Not tense anymore. Just waiting. The front porch was quiet except for the faint sounds of the street and Jeffrey's slow breathing. Josh stepped outside, keeping his distance at first. "Hey, bro," he said gently. "I wasn't there, me or Linda, we weren't part of what you were talking about." Jeffrey looked over at him, eyes still heavy with everything he'd been carrying. "I know," he said softly, "but I still love you and her, you two are my brother and sister." Josh's expression softened right away. He stepped a little closer, not too much, just enough to be there. "That hasn't changed," Josh said, "not for me either." Jeffrey nodded faintly, looking out ahead again. "Even if I got everything mixed up," he added quietly, "that part's real." Josh gave a small, steady smile. "Then that's something we can hold on to," he said. They stood there for a moment in the fresh air, no pressure, no questions, just something simple and solid between them. Jeffrey leaned back slightly in his chair, staring out past the porch like he was trying to line up two different versions of the same memory. "That's what I questioned you about at the hospital," he said slowly. But when I entered the house, I knew you and I didn't know at the same time, the Jeffrey you know, I don't know him. Josh frowned, listening carefully instead of interrupting. Then he nodded, remembering. You were quiet, Josh said, like almost non-speaking, before you could only say yes or no. Jeffrey looked down at his hands. Yeah, he muttered, that's the part that doesn't make sense. How can I be that person and this one at the same time? Josh leaned on the porch railing, keeping his voice steady. I don't know how your mind is sorting it out, he said, but I remember you like that too, and I remember you like this. He paused. You're still you though, even if your memories feel split up. Jeffrey didn't answer right away. The air between them stayed calm, not solving anything, but holding it without panic this time. Josh stayed on the porch a moment longer, then turned back toward the house. His voice was steady but serious. Mom, Dad, we need to talk with you. Tom and Dea looked up immediately. Josh continued, choosing his words carefully. Before the seizure, he was barely able to speak, almost nonverbal. After that, he can talk again. That detail made Tom's expression change, focus sharpening into concern. Josh went on. He told me he feels like he's got both timelines in his head, but one of them feels clearer to him than the other. There was a pause. Dea stepped forward slightly. We need to be very careful with how we interpret that, she said softly. Tom nodded. Yeah, that kind of shift, speech, memory confusion, strong alternate experiences, that's not something we dismiss, but it's also not something we confirm as another timeline. Josh frowned. I'm not saying I understand it, I'm just telling you what he said. Tom exhaled slowly, and that's important, but what we're seeing is someone whose brain is trying to organize something overwhelming, maybe after a medical event, maybe after stress, maybe both. Dea looked toward the hallway where Jeffrey was. What matters right now, she said, is that he's stable, he's communicating, and he's feeling scared by what he's experiencing. Tom nodded again, firmer now. So we take this seriously, but we don't reinforce the idea that these are literal separate timelines. We help him stay grounded in what's happening here in this reality and get proper medical and psychological support. Josh looked back outside briefly. He's not doing this for attention, Josh said quietly. I don't think anyone believes that, Dea replied, but we do think he needs help that goes beyond this conversation. The house went quiet for a moment again, this time less like a crisis and more like a decision forming. Inside, Jeffrey was still out on the porch, not alone, but still very much in the middle of something he couldn't fully explain. After everyone left, the house finally settled into a quieter rhythm. Tom came back to Jeffrey's room and moved carefully, like he was trying not to add any more weight to the day. He checked everything, made sure the space was calm, then helped him get ready for bed. Jeffrey sat in his chair, quieter now. Did Josh tell you what I said? He asked. Tom nodded gently. Yes, he did. It's hard, I know. Jeffrey looked down. I just want to live without questioning everything, he said softly, all the time. Tom didn't rush to respond. He just helped guide him through the routine, slower, steady, like giving the moment something solid to hold onto. I hear you, Tom said quietly. That sounds exhausting. Jeffrey let out a small breath and shifted as Tom helped him settle. As he lay down, the tension in his body eased a little, like sleep was the only place that didn't argue back. Tom adjusted the blanket and stayed nearby for a moment, not leaving right away. You don't have to solve everything tonight, he said, just rest. Jeffrey didn't answer, but his eyes stayed open for a second longer, then slowly closed. The room stayed quiet, no more questions for now, just the simple stillness of the night finally taking over. Jeffrey lay there for a moment, eyes half open, voice soft and tired. Even when I try to make sense of this timeline, I like it here. Tom paused at the bedside, listening carefully. You like it here? He asked gently. Jeffrey nodded faintly. Yeah, he said, even if it's confusing, even if I don't understand everything, it still feels like I belong here more. Tom didn't rush to correct him or challenge the feeling, he just stayed steady beside the bed. I get that, he said quietly, feeling like you belong somewhere matters. Jeffrey shifted slightly under the blanket, his voice weaker now. It's just the questions never stop, he added, but here at least people are here. Tom nodded, and people are going to keep being here. A long pause settled in the room. The confusion, the earlier chaos, the fear, it all felt farther away in this moment, not solved but quieter. Tom reached over and gently adjusted the blanket one more time. Rest now, he said, we'll deal with everything else tomorrow. Jeffrey didn't respond this time. His breathing slowed and the room stayed still as night finally took over. Dea stood in the doorway a moment, watching Jeffrey settle into sleep. She lowered her voice. Tom, he good. Tom looked over at Jeffrey, then back at her. His expression was tired but steady. Yeah, he said quietly, he's okay right now. Dea nodded slowly, like she was confirming it for herself too. Good, she said, he's been through too much today. Tom exhaled and leaned slightly against the wall. We all have, he added. They both stayed there for a moment longer, not saying much, just making sure the room stayed calm. Inside, Jeffrey's breathing stayed even, the chaos of the day finally giving way to rest. Dea lingered in the doorway a moment longer, then spoke quietly. I found someone that may help him. Tom immediately shook his head slightly, keeping his voice low. Let's not talk about that now, he said. Dea studied him for a second, then nodded. Okay, she replied, but we do need to think about next steps. Tom looked back toward Jeffrey's room, where everything was finally still. I know, he said softly, but tonight isn't the night for planning, he needs calm first. Dea exhaled and stepped back into the hall. All right, she said, tomorrow then. Tom nodded once. Tomorrow. The house stayed quiet after that, no more questions, no more arguments, just the sound of a long day finally ending.